Welcome to All India Center. We are seeing the previous year UPSC question paper discussion program continuously in this series. Today we have to start the previous year UPSC question paper General Studies paper 2 in 2017. Already we covered the GS paper 1 in previous classes. In this class we have to start the previous year UPSC question paper 2, General Studies paper 2. In this paper we are going to cover the questions of the General Studies paper 2, which was asked in 2017 UPSC mains. First, we have to know that what are the topics, what are the subjects covered in the General Studies 2. In this paper, first topic is polity, second one is governance, third one is social justice, next one is international relations, and also we have to give more focus on comparison of the Indian Constitution with the other constitution in this year. Those who are going to start the preparation for 2023, they have to more focus on comparison of the Indian Constitution with the other constitution, because there is a many limelight on that comparison of Indian Constitution, because the government of India is focused on giving more constitutional reforms. For example, Uniform Civil Code, many other areas are in debate. So we have to give more focus on the areas of previous comparison of the Indian Constitution or the Constitution. Already one video we have made that our Indian origin UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was our son-in-law of Bangalore businessman Infosys Narayana Murthy. We have made a separate video. You have to watch it. It will give some insights about the India and the UK relationship, how the UK evolved, which party is in power in UK, how it affect the India UK relationship. Now we are going to see the UPSC, the General Studies paper 2. In this first question, the local self-government system in India has not proved to be the effective instrument of the governance. Critically examine the statement and give your views to improve the situation. The local self-government, we know that it was started in 1881 by the Lord Ripon. So he was called as the father of the local self-government. The local self-government system, having an important role in local planning, development and administration, got a big slip when it got constitutional status under the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment by the L.M. Singhvi Committee recommendation. Success of the L.M. Singhvi recommendation is the constitutional status was provided by the Narasimha Rao government, where it was implemented through the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment. First, we have to see the success of the local self-government in India. First one is democratic decentralization. Through the election of 30 lakh representatives in the Panchayat alone, as per the Devolution Index report 2013-2014 and IAPA, voice to the marginalized and vulnerable sections of the society through the reservation for women, SC and STs, effective public service delivery as per the needs of the local population through the local self-government, allows for bottom-up approach. Example, MG Narega. We know that MG Narega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Assistance Program, 100 days work for the poor people in the rural areas. It will give the empowerment to the local people, especially to the poor, marginalized sections of the women and old age people. What are the challenges? Shortcomings of the local self-government in India. Local self-government depends upon functions, funds and functionary. These are the 3 F's. What are the challenges of the local self-government? Function, the progress of devolution of the powers and responsibilities to the local government at various levels is poor and uneven. So, first, functions are not defined. Functions are interfered by the state government and the central government and local politicians. So functions is vague. Next one, fund. The local bodies cannot even meet routine functions because the proceeds of the various taxes are not available to them as they form part of the consolidated fund of the state. Functionaries, there is a capacity deficit among the personal and elected functionaries due to the lack of capacity building. Measures are to improve the status of the local self-government. Second ARC committee, Mallikarjuna Veerapamoli was the chairperson of the second ARC committee. It was set up by the Union government in 2008 by UPA1. The second ARC committee have gave some recommendation to improve the functions, funds and functionaries of the local self-government. First one is clear definition of the functions for each level of the local government in case of the each subject matter. We know that local self-government is mentioned in the 11th schedule and the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution. 11th schedule deals with the rural government and the 12th schedule deals with the urban government. 11th schedule has 28 subjects. 12th schedule is having 19 subjects. State Finance Commission should evolve subject and transparent norms for devolution and distribution of the funds. Capacity building efforts must attend to both the organization building requirement and also professional skills upgradation. Individual associated with these bodies putting in place a well delineated activity mapping for local governments. Next, the second question, the critically examine the Supreme Court's judgment on National Judicial Appointments Commission NJAC 2014 with the reference to appointment of judges of the higher judiciary in India. Recently, the Supreme Court struck down the 99th Constitutional Amendment and held the verdict view that NJAC National Judicial Appointment Commission is not a credible alternative to the Supreme Court's collegium system of appointment of the judges for the higher judiciary. We know that new Supreme Court CJI, 15th CJI, we know that D.Y. Chandrasut announced last week that we have to review the collegium system and we should review and implement the democratic system in the collegium while appointment of the judges. The court held that the primacy of the judiciary is in the appointment of the judges was part of the basic structure of the constitution and the parliament should thorough the NJAC Act violated this basic structure by giving the executive and civil society a base say in this appointment. However, the judgment faced criticism based on the following arguments. The verdict upheld the extra constitutional forum created by the Supreme Court's own members to serve its own ends in the place of the system lawfully enacted by the popularly elected parliament. According to the critics, the judgment failed to adequately answer the fundamental question at the tool of the controversy. Now, is judicial primacy in making the appointments to the higher judiciary as part of our constitutional basic structure, where the constitution appoints to the president the power to appoint the judges with a compulsory consulting with certain persons. Critics say that Supreme Court in the second judge cases 1993 wrongly interpreted the word constitution used in Article 124 and 217 to mean occurrence. The court then held that executive was bound by the advice of the CJA in making the appointments of the higher judiciary. Even the Supreme Court has admitted in same NJAC judgment that all is not well within the opaque collegium system of judges appointing the judges and called for further discussion on reform process of the collegium system. The Constitution envisages and puts a system in place to ensure the balance of power involving the executive and the legislature and judiciary, but not the cost of opaqueness in appointment process. With the evident loopholes in the collegium system, time has come for a review of the verdict by a larger bench. So the same verdict was reviewed will be viewed by the T.Y. Chandrasur head during the tenure. So we will expect the soon amendment. We will expect the amendment in the collegiate system soon. It will be transparent and accountable to the democracy. Question number 3, simultaneous election to the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies will limit the amount of the time and the money spent in the electioneering, but it will reduce the government's accountability to the people. Discuss. Recently, debate over simultaneous holding of the elections to the parliament and state legislature has been reviewed. The Election Commission has also supported the idea of holding simultaneous elections. Simultaneous elections broadly means structuring the India's election cycle in a manner that elections to Lok Sabha and state assemblies are synchronized together. Benefits of the simultaneous election. The 79th report of the Department related Parliament Committee has justified the simultaneous conduct of the polls on several grounds, including a huge cut-off expenditure incurred for the conduct of the separate elections every year. Frequent elections lead to imposition of the model code of conduct over the prolonged period of time and puts on hold that entire development program and activities of the union and state government in the whole bound state. Simultaneous election will help in limiting the amount of time in electioneering. Simultaneous elections would also reduce the pressure on manpower and resource deployment necessary for conduct elections. Concerns regarding the reducing the government's accountability to the people. Assembly elections are fought on local issues and parties and leaders are judged in context of their work done in the state. Clubbing them with the general election could lead to a situation where the national narrative submerges the regional story and dilutes the accountability of the state leadership. Therefore, while the idea of simultaneous election does not hold the merit, due consideration should be given to both its benefits and demerits before a decision is taken. Simultaneous elections are desirable provided they are just boxed with the certain reforms that would require a superior political consequences to bring a constitutional amendment to curtail or raise term of some states to enable election commission to synchronize full schedule, raise necessary resources of the election commission such as EVM, personnel, etc. Recently, former election commissioner, chief election commissioner also announced that simultaneous election will be held, one nation, one election will be held into the 2024, but it was not debated as a serious idea. But many states were opposed the idea of one nation, one election. If it is announced, the central government may work during the election time only, or state governments work during the election times only to the people. But after came to power, they will not work for the people. They forget the people. The autocracy will be there, because in a single 5 years, the continuous 3 type of elections are held continuously for union government MP elections, state government MLA elections, and local body elections were held continuously. To win in the each election, the central government and the state governments work together for the people to win the heart of the people to ensure the democracy. It will ensure the indirect and direct democracy in India. So the frequent elections for the 3 phases will be necessary, but one nation, one election may reduce the cost expenditure, but it has some complex difficulties. What are the difficulties? Means in 2021 itself, Tamil Nadu government was formed by Dravida Munnetra Kalagam Party with the chief minister of Mr. M.K. Stalin. But if it is announced in 2024 election, it should be short limited within the 3 years. If it is if it is not done, if the one nation, one election was conducted in 2026, the union government term will be increased to 2026. So there is a contradictions. Who are going to be the victim? Who who are going to be the beneficiary. The political parties are debating about that. So what will happen? We will see in future. Next, we will go to the next question. Question number 4. Question number 4. How do pressure groups influence the Indian political process? Do you agree with the view that informal pressure groups have emerged as powerful as formal pressure groups in recent times? We know that pressure groups are acting as a influencing factor while making the policy of the government by the government for the benefit of the people. It ensures the rule of law, it ensures the democracy, it ensures the maximum benefit to the maximum number of people, to the people of India, in the Republic India. The pressure groups in working in the various spheres, it may be environment, it may be social justice, it may be women empowerment, it may be poverty alleviation, it may be rehabilitation of the migrated people for the various economic activities. So pressure groups are working informal, but many demands were there. It should be formalized by the government. Government should give recognition to the good altruistic pressure groups. So we will discuss. Pressure groups is an organization formed when people with the common occupation, interest, aspirations, or opinion come together in order to achieve a common objective. The influence on the Indian political system, Indian process are they have taken the role as agencies of the interest articulations, interest aggregations, political communications, political socialization, and political opinion. They have been agent of the democratic deepening by highlighting the interest of the certain groups. Very often they filled the void that political parties missed, putting issue of the corruption and the environment to the forefront of the public policy. In a huge and a diverse democracy like in India, pressure groups have ensured that no voice is left unheard. Of late, informal, unorganized groups have asserted more power in the political decision-making process. Despite being unstructured and having limited access to financial resources, these groups have proven to be much more impactful than otherwise through possible. The issue around which they are centered resonates and connects with the people cutting across the religion, caste, languages, and gender, resulting in group taking the shape of the movement. This was seen in the cases of Nirbhaya movement. Nirbhaya case was a very most vibrant case. It was shaken to the entire India in 2012-13, which led to the changes in the Visaha guidelines. Visaha guidelines was given by the Supreme Court judgment in 1996, setting up the Justice Verma Committee and also amendment to the Joint Justice Act. What is the contradiction is the government is was not able to punish the cruel criminals. They were responsible for the victim in the Nirbhaya case. But the legal hurdles were removed by the recommendations of the Verma Committee recommendations by amending the Joint Justice Amendment Act. India against the corruption movement which led to the Lokpal Act. But these movements were informal, not associated to any identities or entities, but were issue-based, related to legislative actions at the center. So, government should work for the providing recognition to the pressure groups because it worked a lot for the development of the country. But there is some challenges as per the recent issues. Many pressure groups are working for the foreign agents. Many pressure groups are working against the state government or central government for influencing their political ideology, their religious ideology, their cultural ideologies. They are funded by the foreign agencies. They are working against the development of the nation. Many times they were labeled as the anti-Indians, anti-social elements, anti-social activities. So government should differentiate these pressure groups into good pressure groups and also pressure groups. How they be separated? This is the bigger task we will see in the future. Question number 6 discuss the role of the political accounts, public accounts committee in establishing accountability on the government of the people. Public Accounts Committee, we know that Public Accounts Committee is guided by the headed by the opposition party leader. Public Accounts Committee is supported by CAG report. CAG report is the front philosopher guide to the Public Accounts Committee. Public Accounts Committee is considered as the most important financial committee of the government parliament in the financial accountability process. It comprises of 22 members from the parliament, 17 from the Lok Sabha lower house and 7 from the Rajya Sabha upper house. It establishes accountability of the government by examining the budgetary appropriations and accounts of the government and reports the Comptroller and Auditor General under Article 151 of the execution of the projects and programs of the various ministries. We know that Article 148 deals with the Comptroller and Auditor General actions, and a report of Comptroller and Auditor General deals with the Article 151. It was given to the President. The President submits it to the Parliament. In the Parliament, Public Accounts Committee, usually it is a custom and tradition. Opposition party leader is the head of the Public Accounts Committee. The Public Accounts Committee will examine, scrutinize the political manner, the public accounts, the financial accounts were properly spent or not. They will scrutinize moral, legal and political, economical aspects. By examining that, they will give the report in Parliament, they will debate in the Parliament, they will question the government by the major political parties or those who are opposition against the government. Then the political cyclone will rise in the Parliament. This is the nature of the CAG. We know that 2G spectrum case was raised by the CAG report of the Vinod Rai, so that only that time the Union Minister A. Raja was resigned from the cabinet, and former Chief Minister's daughter Mrs. Kanimuli Karunanidhi was resigned, was arrested, were imprisoned in Bihar prison for the investigation. But if the case was filed to prove the accused, they were released. But it created the impact of the Vinod Rai's report. The CAG report was that much powerful. It created a huge impact in the Indian Parliament. Similarly, it has some political affiliations. Many criticisms were there that the Vinod Rai action was Vinod Rai's report was arbitrary. It was a biased report against the own political party, but it has some merits also. Examining the budgetary appropriation and accounts of the government and the reports of the CAG, Article 151, on the execution of the projects and programs by the various ministries. Examining the demand of the excess grants before they are presented to appropriation accounts and audit report of the CAG audit. The committee has its satisfy itself that the money that had been disbursed was legally available for the applied service and service. The expenditure conforms to the authority that governs it. Every reappropriation has been made in accordance with the related rules. The committee examines the public expenditure not only from legal and formal point of view to discover technical irregularities, but also from the point of view economy, prudence, wisdom and propriety to bring about the cases of waste, loss, corruption, extravagance, inefficiency and regulatory expenses, demerits. Public Accounts Committee in India is not able to enforce the accountability of the government to the people in true sense, because even it brings about the irregularities in the public expenditure, there are no mechanism to enforce the corrective measures. It examines the expenditure which has already been done by the government. The recommendations are only advisory in nature and are not binding on the ministry on the day. Public Accounts Committee got no mandate to examine the policy in broader sense. However, Public Accounts Committee at times, through its criticism of the inefficient public expenditure of the government, creates a strong public opinion against the government. The incumbent government, to remain in power, tries to rectify the inefficiency in the public expenditure and policy making. Thus, the committee helps in enforcing the accountability of the executive to the people. Next question number 6. To ensure the effective implementation of the policies addressing the water, sanitation and the hygiene needs, the identification of the beneficiary segments is to be synchronized and anticipate the anticipated outcomes. Examine the statement in the context of the WAS scheme. WASH, WASH it is a kind of the own sanitation, cleanliness, hygiene, health-oriented campaign to ensure the long life. India is one of the developing countries that has come out with the WASH schemes. WASH to address the challenges of the health and sanitation in urban and rural areas. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan for urban and rural areas is one of the manifestation importance of the WASH scheme. There has been a huge disparities in access to WASH services across the different segments of the population. In India, around 128 million lake safe water services and about 840 million people don't have sanitation services. Thus, there is an urgent need to identify the different kinds of the beneficiaries and communities whose access to WASH services need to be enhanced. The outcomes need to be enhanced in terms of the adequacy, accessibility, affordability, and quality and safety of the WASH services. WASH sectors comes under concurrent subjects and both the central and state governments can legislation on it. The collection of data related to WASH schemes are generally done at the state level, but it suffers from many discrepancies. The needs and the barriers for segments of the population differ, and consequently the strategies also need to be customized for the different segments. Therefore, policymakers are gradually moving away from the one-size-fits-all approach to make to more beneficiary-centric approach. The traditional approach has been to segment the beneficiaries on the basis of the geographical and social context of GSS population, therefore segmented as a rural, urban, low income and so on. Recently, there is a trend to segment the beneficiaries on the basis of the human life cycle. Beneficiaries are thus segmented as children, adolescents, adults and senior citizens and so on. To be able to achieve our WASH targets, it is important that our policies adapt to the both LGS and GSS approaches. Question number 7. Does the Rights of the Person with Disabilities Act 2016 ensure the effective mechanism for empowerment and inclusion of the intended beneficiaries in the society? Discuss. Right to Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 replaced the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995 to comply with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities. It has come as the brief for estimated 70 to 100 million disabled citizens of India. Main provisions of the Act that ensures the inclusion and empowerment are enumerated below. The Act aims towards a more inclusive approach of the disabled population by increasing the types of disability from existing 7 to 21, speech and language disability and specific learning disability have been added for the time. Acid attack victims have been also included. Many times acid attack was seen in the news, so that only Indian government was added. The acid attack victims were also enumerated in the list of the public person with a disability list. Every child with a benchmark disability, at least 40% of the specific disability between the age group of 6 and 18 years has been given the right to free education. It also recognizes the right to disabled child to study in mainstream school. Additional benefits such as reservation for the higher education not less than 5%, government jobs not less than 4%, reservation in allocation of the land property elevation and schemes, 5% allotment, etc. have been provided for the person with the benchmark disabilities, and those with the high support needs. Stress has also been given to ensure the accessibility in public buildings in a prescribed time frame. The Act stresses the principles of the non-discrimination, full and effective participation and inclusion in society, equality of the opportunity, accessibility, and respect for involving capacities of children with disabilities. Emphasis has been given to right-based approach with a focus on right to equality and opportunity, right to inherit and own property, right to home, family, and reproductive rights, among others. The act has also been criticized as it misses on social special provision to assist a person with mental illness. Many states also could not frame rules under the Act within the stipulated time limit. In absence of the rules, several key provisions of the Act could not be enforced. While the 2016 Act provides many reassurances, brings domestic law in consonance with the international standards, and is a huge step forward. Its implementation should be monitored carefully to ensure that the needs of the persons suffering from the disability issues are being comprehensively met. Question number 8. Hunger and poverty are biggest challenges for the good governance in India. Still today, evaluate how far successive governments have progressed in dealing with these homogeneous problems, suggest measures for improvement. From a famine affected third world country that departed on import of the food grains to feed its population to a food secured nation, India has come to a long way. Various steps are taken by the successive government to deal with the hunger and poverty and discussed below. Again, I want to repeat the question. The hunger and poverty are the biggest challenges for the good governance in India still today. Evaluate how far successive governments have progressed in dealing with these homogeneous problems. Suggest the measures for the improvement. We know that sustainable development goals were listed into 17 goals. In the 17 goals, the hunger and poverty and hunger are the first two goals. The world should not have the hunger and poverty. These are the goal of 1 and 2 of the sustainable development goals. It should be ensured before the 2030 UN sustainable development goals. India already taken many steps to alleviate the poverty and remove the hunger from India. Now we will evaluate how the union government are working to end the poverty, to end the hunger. Green Revolution in 1960s assured that India became the self-sufficient in food grain production. There is a clear evidence that level of hunger declined in most of the states. Karibi Kato program, removal of the poverty, gained the prominence during the 1970s with the emphasis of the welfare of the masses by the Indira Gandhi regime, government of Union of India. Food for work program implemented from time to time aimed towards providing the food in lieu of work also met with some successes. It was felt that it would address the dual need of the employment and food. The accessibility issue of the food was issued by targeted public distribution system introduced in 1997. Better targeting ensured the reduction in levels of poverty and hunger. More recently, employment generation program like MG Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Assistance Assurance Scheme and Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana have met to the unprecedented success in improving the livelihood of the people. But the challenges still remain. According to the latest Global Hunger Index 2017, India got lowly 100th position out of 119 countries. On poverty front also, around 21.9% of India's population still lives below the national poverty line. Measures would be taken are all the above program and the schemes are mired with the leakages and the problems last mile delivery. the issue need to be addressed by the better targeting using the JAM Trinity, Jandan Aadhar Mobile, J for Jandan, A for Aadhar, M for mobile connectivity. This is the Trinity to ensure the direct benefit transfer of the government funds to the targeted beneficiaries without any leakages. All the above programs and the schemes are mired with the leakages, so the leakages were fixed by the JAM Trinity. Low performance on hunger index can be improved by moving towards the nutritional security by way of promotion of the nutri cereals and other supplements. In the Union government also introduced the scheme to ensure the food security in the schools by the midday meal scheme. Already the state government introduced the midday meal scheme. The Tamil Nadu government introduced the midday meal scheme by the Kamraj Chief Minister Kamraj regime. Earlier it was pioneerly it was introduced checked by the Madras Corporation, Greater Chennai Corporation during the time of Tyagarajar. But later it was changed, the midday meal scheme was changed into the nutri meal scheme by the N.G. Ramachandran government. Then it was changed into the highly nutritious food with the egg and bananas were given by the M. Karnanidhi government. Now the present Chief Minister also introduced the state-sponsored morning meal scheme, morning breakfast scheme was introduced. It ensures the food security to the school students and also increases the education assurance to the poor and marginal sections of the society in India. So, better facilitate the healthcare and education will directly or indirectly help in reducing the out-of-pocket expenditure and thus will help reduce the incidence of the poverty. Steps towards the realization of the goals of the universal basic income and basic minimum services will go a long way in addressing the various cycle of chronic poverty. China is using its economic relations and positive trade surplus as a tools to develop potential military power status in Asia. In the light of this statement, discuss its impact on India as her neighbor. China has emerged both as an economic and military powerhouse. It was a trade surplus with the most of the countries in Asia, including India. China is economic initiative like the One Belt One Road initiative and Maritime Silk Road through the promoted primarily as an economic initiative have strategic undertone. Possible impact of China's rise on India's are China could emerge as a direct military threat to India, as has been seen in the recent Toklam standoff and other border disputes. In face of the rising assertion in an international affairs, China could hamper the India's interest in a multilateral formula like UN Security Council permanent membership and those initiated by the Beijing like Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is headed by Beijing. Growing economic cooperation between China and Pakistan could be seen as a policy to contain India. This is evident from China-Pakistan economic corridor, which was potential to emerge as a threat to India. China's deepening relation with the South Asian countries, while China is involved in infrastructure building, poses significant challenges to India's position in the region. At present, China has more say in the region where India had strong hold in the past. China rising economic influence in Asia will allow the Beijing to spread its influence in the entire region, which could be used to India's detriment. In face of these challenges, India's policy response must focus on building indigenous military power and forging regional cooperation at the same time. So, China-India relationship should be strengthened by the technical and cooperation manner. China has emerged both as an economic and military powerhouse. So its trade surplus and its trajectory of the economic development is very high. So government should focus on that and have a proper plan for them. Question number 10. What are the main functions of the United Nations Economic and Social Council? It is also known as ECOSOC. ECOSOC. Explain the different functions and the commissions affected to it, attached to it. The UN Charter established by ECOSOC in 1945. Economic and Social Council as on the sixth main organs of the United Nations. Economic and Social Councils, ECOSOC, helps United Nations system to advance the three dimensions of the sustainable development. What are the dimensions? Economic, social, and environmental. Economic, social, and environmental. It is the central platform for fostering the debate and innovative thinking, forging the consensus on ways forward, and coordinating efforts to achieve the internationally agreed goals. It also responsible for follow-up to major UN conferences and subjects. Functions of the Economic and Social Council with the three pillars of environment, economy, and society. First one is Statistical Commission. It oversees the work of the United Nations Statistics Division, the highest body of the global statistical system. Commission on Population and Development. It monitors, reviews, and assesses the implementation of the program of action of International Conference on Population and Development at the national, regional, and global levels, identifying the reason for success and failure and advising the Council thereon. Commission for Social Development. It advises the Economic Social Council on social policies of the general character and in particular on all matters in the social field not covered by the specialized intergovernmental agencies. Commission on Status of the Women. It is the principal global intergovernmental body exclusively dedicated to the promotion of the gender equality and the empowerment of the women. Commission on Narcotic Drugs. It assists to the Economic and Social Council in supervision with the application of the International Drug Control Treaties. International Drug Control Treaties. Next one is Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. It acts as the principal policy making body of the United Nations in the field of crime preservation and criminal justice. Commission on Social and Technology for Development. It provides like General Assembly and ECOSOC with the high level advice on relevant science and technology issues. United Nations Forum on Forest. It is intergovernmental body to strengthen political commitment on action with respect to sustainable forest management. Sustainable forest management. So these are the functions of the UN ECOSOC. We should add some current affairs topics with the what are the functions recently done by the United Nations Economic and Social Council UN ECOSOC. In the conclusion, and we should give some suggestions to improve its efficiency and its targets, to attain its targets very soon. Question number 11. Explain the salient features of the Constitution. 100th and First Amendment Act 2016. Do you think it's efficacious to remove the cascading effect of the taxes and provide for the common national market for GST? In July 1, 2017, GST was introduced in India. Earlier, it was introduced through the Constitutional Amendment Act. It is 101 Constitutional Amendment Act in 2016. The President also gave the assent. Parliament approved and President assent. It became the amendment. The Constitution 101st Amendment Act 2016 provides for the introduction of the goods and services tax in India. GST is one of the biggest indirect tax reforms in India. Salient features of this act, it amalgamates a large number of the central and state taxes like the central excise duty, countervailing duty, service tax, value-added tax, act like, etc. in a single tax. It inserts a new article 246A in the Constitution to give the central and state governments the concurrent power to make the laws on the taxation of the goods and services. Only the center met levy and collect the integrated GST in course of the interstate trade to be divided between center and states. It provides for the constitution of the GST Council to develop a harmonized national market of the goods and services. It makes the provision for arising out of the implementation of the GST. Cascading effect of the taxes. GST follows the multi-stage collection mechanism in which tax is collected to every stage and credit of a tax paid at the previous stage is available as a set off at the next stage of the transaction. This means that tax paid on inputs is deducted from the tax payable and the output produced, input tax credit. This is expected to mitigate the ill effect of cascading. However, the effectiveness of will depend on the level of higher digital literacy of the traders and the efficient functioning of the GST network. One nation, one tax, and one nation, one tax, and one market. GST aims to make the India as a common national market through uniform tax rates and procedures. Removal of the hurdles in the interstate transactions as the only IGST, integrated GST, will be applied on interstate trade. However, the efficacy of the uniform trade is hindered by the multiple tax slabs, 0%, 5, 12, 18, and 28 tax exemption to real estates, petroleum and alcohol, and exclusion of the informal and unorganized economy, which accounts for the nearly 50% of the India's gross domestic product. Any new reform is expected to experience a few feeling problems, since it is expected to be beneficial to the Indian economy in long term. A gradual course corrections should continue to ensure that it is able to meet its intended objectives. Examine the scope of the fundamental rights in the light of the latest judgment of the Supreme Court on right to privacy 2017. Recently, the Union Government, recent judgments of the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court has expanded the scope of the fundamental rights further by ruling that right to privacy is intrinsic to the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21 of the 21 and is inherently protected under the various fundamental rights enshrined under the Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. The judgment will amplify the scope of the fundamental rights in the following ways. The concept of the privacy is embedded in the light to liberty, dignity, and that everything done in the exercise of the freedom could be attributed to privacy. Therefore, different kinds of the freedom guaranteed under the Article 19 will also get amplified, and also legislative acts and executive actions will have to be met the rigors of the right to privacy. Similarly, right to equality under Article 14 can only be exercised through the liberty and freedom of choice. Similarly, right to equality under Article 14 can only be exercised through the liberty and freedom of choice. Sexual orientation is part of the right to privacy, and thus the freedom to make the choices and the right to determine what happens with the information about oneself. It will question the Aadhaar scheme being enforced by the government to avail the different kinds of the public services, although the constitutional validity of the Aadhaar scheme is yet to be decided by the constitutional bench of the Supreme Court. However, it should not be forgotten that no fundamental rights are absolute in India. Therefore, right to privacy will also be guided by the same. Different limitations have been imposed by the Constitution itself on the exercise of the fundamental rights. Thus, right to privacy will be tested on case-to-case basis. However, the judgment of the Supreme Court will open a new path for securing privacy, liberty, equality, and dignified life for the common man. It will also be helpful in creating the robust legal framework for the privacy in India. So, this is the question number 12. Next question, the Indian Constitution has provision for holding a joint session of the two houses of the Parliament. Enumerate the occasions when this would normally happen, and also occasions when it cannot, due to the reasons, and therefore Indian Parliament is bicameral, and concurrence of the both the houses is required for to pass any bill. However, sometimes there are situations of deadlock between the upper house and the that is the Rajya Sabha, and the lower house, that is Lok Sabha. Article 108 of the Indian Constitution has the provision of joint sitting of both the houses of the Parliament. Under these special circumstances, President summons the joint sitting, which is presided by the Lok Sabha Speaker. Occasions when this would normally happen: if after a bill has been passed by one house and transmitted to the other house, the bill is rejected by the other house, the house may have finally disagreed as to the amendment to be made in the bill, or more than 6 months elapsed from the date of the reception of the bill by other house without the bill being passed by it. Exceptions to the joint sitting: not all bills can be referred to a joint session of the Parliament. There are two exceptions. That is money bill. Under the Constitution of India, money bill requires approval of Lok Sabha only. Rajya Sabha can give suggestions to the Lok Sabha, which it is not required to accept. Even if Rajya Sabha has not passed a money bill within 14 days, it is deemed to have been passed by both the houses of the Parliament after the expiry of the above period. Therefore, there is a need of summoning a joint session in case of the money bill. Constitution Amendment Bill, as per the Article 368, the Indian Constitution can be amended by both houses of the Parliament by the 2/3 majority. In cases of the disagreement between two houses, there is no provision to summon joint session of the Parliament. Dowry Prohibition Act 1960, Banking Service Act 1977, and POTA, Prevention of Terrorism Act 2002, were the few bills that passed through the joint session of the Parliament. Once again, I repeat you: the Dowry Prohibition Act 1960, Banking Service Commission Act 1977, and Prevention of Terrorism Act 2002 were the few bills that passed through the joint session of the Parliament. Next, question number 14. To enhance the quality of the democracy in India, the Election Commission of India has proposed electoral reforms in 2016. What are the suggested reforms? How far are they significant to make the democracy successful? Electoral reform basically aims at introducing an electoral system of conducting free and fair elections, keeping in view of necessary to strengthen democracy. The Election Commission suggested significant reforms. Constitution protection for all members of the Election Commission of India. ECA suggested that other election commissions should also be protected in the same manner as the Chief Election Commissioner is protected under the Class 5 of Article 324. Budget of the Constitution to be charged. Presently, the administrative expenditure of the Commission is voted expenditure. The Commission sent a proposal that the expenditure of the Commission should be charged, non-votable expenditure on the Consolidated Fund of India, similar to the other constitutional bodies. Independent Secretariat. The Commission proposes that it would have independent secretariat along the lines of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and registries of the Supreme Court and High Courts. Proxy voting, Section 60 of the Representation of the People Act 1951 should be amended to provide the overseas electors that the alternative option of the proxy voting or postal ballot voting. The Commission proposes the making of any false statement or declaration before the Election Commission should be an electoral offence. The Commission has proposed amendments and suggested dividing the seats in the Council of States and State Legislative Council into 3 categories, specifying the term for each category in such a way that biennial retirement of 1/3 of the members would be ensured. Use of totalizer for counting votes. Electronic voting machine totalizer can count votes of the multiple electronic voting machines simultaneously. They have the results of the votes in a group of electronic voting machine can be taken without ascertaining the result in individual electronic voting machine corresponding to polling booth. Persons charged with the cognizable offences shall be debarred from the contesting in the elections. At the stage when the charges are framed by the competent court, provided that offence is punishable by the imprisonment at least 5 years, and case filed is at least a 6 month period to the election of the question. So we can conclude this class with this question. We'll continue this question with from the next class onwards. Many aspirants wrote the group on TNPSC group on examination the day before yesterday. They are thinking about the future. So this is the right time for the preliminary examination UPSC 2023. So don't waste your time while spending about the whether you will clear the prelims examination, TNPSC group on prelims examination or not. Please focus on UPSC preliminary examination 2023. Start solving the those who are already prepared for the earlier preliminary examination. Don't waste the time you are on thinking about whether the results will come or not. Please go ahead for the preliminary examination of 2023. Solve as many MCQs as possible, and many people felt that the CSAT paper was tough in the last year. So concentrate on your preliminary, strengthen your quantitative aptitude skills, logical reasoning skills, and comprehension solving skills, and give concentration more on your reading ability, because it will give more efficiency to understand the questions easily. It will give more time to solve. It will save your time for getting the service. All right, we will conclude this session with this, and thank you.